Helen's life had never been easy. 30. She had grown accustomed to existing on the fringes of society, struggling with hunger, cold, and loneliness, day after day. She wandered the streets of New York, where people hurried past without acknowledging her presence. She had grown used to being forgotten, ignored, but Helen always felt like there was something unusual around her. Every night, as she lay under park benches or in the dark corners of the city, she would hear strange noises, not the sound of car horns or people yelling. These were soft whispers, vague voices echoing from a distant place. She didn't know if it was her exhausted mind playing tricks on her or something else entirely. Then one day, while searching for a hot meal at a nearby soup kitchen with a group of homeless people, Helen met Phoebe. The young woman looked desperate but had a glimmer of hope in her eyes, as if she hadn't yet given up amidst the ashes of her life. Phoebe was a talented artist but couldn't find her place in this difficult world. Helen's life took a different turn when she saved Phoebe from a speeding car. In a split-second reaction, Helen pushed Phoebe out of the way and was hit by the car herself. The impact should have killed her, but instead of feeling pain, Helen opened her eyes and found herself in a completely different place. Helen sat up, her hands touching the cold pavement. It didn't feel like real pavement. Everything around her, the city, the buildings, the streets had changed. They looked like a rough copy of New York, but lacked the vibrancy and intricacy of the real world. The buildings were like square blocks, with sharp edges, devoid of the softness of complex architectural designs. Helen stood up, carefully observing her surroundings. No one else was there. The city she once knew had become a mess of glitchy images. Even the sky looked strange, with clouds that appeared hand-drawn, still and unmoving. A sense of fear and unease rose inside her, as if she had stepped into a nightmare with no escape. What's happening? Helen wondered, but there was no answer. The city was utterly silent. She began walking, her feet dragging through the empty streets. Every step echoed in the eerie silence. Helen tried to find signs of life, but everywhere she went, there was only emptiness, soulless windows, faded restaurant signs like compressed images from an old video game. She approached a pizza shop, but when she looked inside, it was just a blur of dull colors, lacking depth. A chill ran down her spine as Helen realized she was in a place that didn't belong to her, a broken version of the world, where everything seemed to have stopped functioning or had never been complete in the first place. As Helen walked through the empty streets, she began to feel something was wrong. She heard whispers, faint, weak but clear. The voice came from somewhere nearby, but when she looked around, no one was there. Only the deadly silence surrounded her. But the voice spoke again, this time louder. "We weren't the first." Helen jumped, turning to see it. Standing at the corner was a child, with a strange, unnatural appearance. Its eyes were empty, devoid of emotion, devoid of life, and its smile was twisted as if it had been permanently fixed to its face. Helen felt terror rising inside her. This child wasn't alive. It looked like something was terribly wrong, a creature that didn't belong in this world. "She's looking at me," Helen thought, her heart pounding in her chest. The child didn't move. It just stood there, staring at her with its lifeless eyes. But the unsettling feeling, as if it was watching her, intensified Helen's fear. She couldn't tear her gaze away from it, as if drawn into those empty eyes. Felt as though time had stopped. Everything around her had ceased to exist. Then suddenly, the child began to move. But its movements were unlike anything Helen had seen before. It glided, not touching the ground. Without a sound, she panicked, turning to run, feeling like she was trapped in a nightmare she couldn't escape. The faster she ran, the closer the child seemed to get. Helen raced through the deserted streets, trying to outrun the eerie entity. But everything around her began to melt and disappear. The streets, the buildings, everything was disintegrating in the chaos of the glitch world. She knew she couldn't keep running. She had to face it. Helen stumbled across an intersection, gasping for breath. her hands trembling as she rested them on her knees. The entity had stopped chasing her, at least for now, but she knew it was still out there, waiting, just when she thought things were too much to handle. Two figures emerged from the shadows, a man wearing a sloth mask and a woman with a raven mask. They approached Helen, their eyes hidden behind the masks, but it felt like they knew everything about her. "You're a stray," the man said, his voice deep and mysterious. Helen stared at them, confused. "Who are you? Where am I?" The woman stepped forward, her voice soft yet authoritative. "We were once like you. We've been trapped in this unfinished world. This world isn't real. It's just a trial version, a demo of what once existed." Helen's mind spun. What do you mean?" The man shook his head. "No one truly knows why this world exists, but we know you've been caught in it. And now, you have to find a way out before it destroys you." Helen wanted to ask more, but she had no time. The darkness behind her began to shift, and she knew the glitch entity was returning. The woman turned to leave, but before walking away, she looked back at Helen once more. "To escape, you have to face it. If you don't, you'll stay here forever." Helen's story culminates in a final confrontation with the glitch entity. After everything she has gone through, she knows she can't keep running. To escape this world and return to reality, she must fight her greatest fear. The entity appeared before her, its form constantly shifting, unstable, and increasingly terrifying. But this time, Helen didn't run. She knew this was the decisive moment, and if she didn't win, she would be trapped in this world forever. She charged into battle with final determination, using everything she had learned from Sloth and Raven to fight the entity. The battle took place in a surreal space where the laws of physics no longer applied. Helen felt fear rising, but she also realized she was stronger than she thought. With every strike, the glitch entity slowly disintegrated, and Helen felt herself regaining control. In the end, Helen won and returned to the real world. But something inside her had changed forever. She realized that, though she had returned, a part of the glitch world remained within her, haunting her. She wasn't sure if she could trust reality anymore, always feeling like she was living in a world where the line between real and unreal was no longer clear. Helen's story is not just a personal journey of a homeless woman battling a glitch world, but a profound reflection on the fragility of reality, on how easily we can be drawn into things we don't understand.